exploring the enthralling mystery of the Shroud of Turin, a marvel between faith and science. Rising above centuries-old controversies, the Shroud of Turin remains one of the most mysterious and captivating religious artifacts in Christian history. Believed to bear the imprint of Jesus Christ's life and resurrection, this shroud not only stirs the faithful, but also serves as the subject of extensive scientific research. From being criticized as a medieval forgery, to recent discoveries that offer new insights into its origins and authenticity, the story of the Shroud of Turin continues to attract and challenge both the academic world and the public. Join us as we delve into the history, mysteries, and latest findings about this unique relic, exploring a comprehensive perspective on its role in Christian faith and the challenges it presents to science. Over 2,000 years ago, one of the most known figures in history, Jesus Christ, was born. He conducted a ministry in Judea in which he proclaimed his identity as the Son of God. As a consequence of this, he was crucified, and according to Christian doctrine, he experienced resurrection after spending 2 nights in a tomb. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is the cornerstone of the Christian faith. One of the most disputed sacred relics is believed to stand as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for Christ's resurrection, the Shroud of Turin. Mocked by the scientific community as a mere medieval forgery, mainly due to previous carbon dating results, the shroud underwent a thorough examination. Despite all skepticism, it frequently seems as if a divine influence is directing its path to reveal to the world that it does, in fact, hold the memory of one of Christianity's holiest occurrences, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. In a breakthrough hailed as one of the most momentous in the history of the holy relic, researchers managed to unveil an inscribed name on it, providing conclusive proof of its authenticity. Before we delve further into this recent discovery, let's first explore the rich historical background of the shroud. In the Gospel of John, we find a reference to the burial clothes left in the tomb, and it appears that these garments played a pivotal role in John's belief in Jesus' resurrection. It's believed that the Shroud of Turin may have been used to envelop the body of Jesus Christ upon his resurrection. Given the ongoing questioning of the Shroud of Turin's authenticity, providing a definitive history for it is also a challenging task. The first documented historical reference to the shroud appears in a text from 1389, which recounts a public exhibition of the shroud in 1355 in Lirey, France, by a French knight named Geoffrey de Charnay. Nevertheless, it faced resistance even from within the church. Bishop Pierre d'Arcis of Troyes and a letter to the Pope labeled it as a skillfully crafted painting and a deliberate forgery. The shroud eventually came into the possession of the House of Savoy, Italy's royal family, in 1453, and it remained in their ownership until 1986, when it was bequeathed to Pope John Paul II and his successors upon the death of Umberto II of Savoy. Starting in 1464, the shroud found a home in a dedicated chapel in Chambéry, nestled in the French Alps. A significant event occurred there on December 4, 1532, when a fire damaged the shroud, leading some to speculate that this incident may have influenced the controversial results of the 1988 radiocarbon dating of the material. In 1578, this relic discovered its sanctuary within the royal chapel of the Cathedral of San Giovanni Battista in Turin, Italy. Subsequently, it gained widespread recognition as the Shroud of Turin. The shroud is truly extraordinary, presenting a 3-dimensional rendering of an entire human form. This burial fabric exhibits exceptionally detailed, life-size depictions of a crucified man, unlike any other artifact in the world. This image is believed to depict none other than Jesus Christ himself. In an era where technology's prowess allows for nearly boundless achievements, it remains a perplexing enigma that no one has succeeded in replicating the mysterious image or the distinctive characteristics of the Holy Shroud. The Shroud of Turin has been a topic of fervent debate and has been subjected to rigorous examination for more than 115 years. Nevertheless, the weight of substantial findings leans towards its association with Jesus Christ. You might remember the carbon dating tests from 1988 that were initially used to challenge its authenticity. But these tests have now been shown to be wrong, conflicting with other scientific methods, archaeological data, and physical evidence. Let's begin by discussing the recent discoveries made by Dr. Gilbert R. Lavoie, a dedicated researcher who has devoted 20 years to a unique blend of medical and scriptural investigations regarding this sacred relic. He has recently unveiled compelling evidence that unequivocally establishes the shroud as a representation of the precise moment of Jesus' resurrection. He arrived at the conclusion that the image on the shroud portrays an individual in an upright position rather than a figure in a supine burial posture. A close examination of the frontal image of the shroud reveals that the hair cascades down on both sides of the face, following the natural pull of gravity. This same gravitational principle holds true when scrutinizing the back image, where the hair flows over the shoulders and descends down the back, perfectly in sync with the posture of an upright individual. The pivotal factor here is the force of gravity, which profoundly influences not only the behavior of the hair, but also the overall appearance of the body when it transitions from an upright position to a supine one. This revelation was substantiated through a series of experiments in which an unclothed individual reclined on his back atop a glass surface. Illustrated by the artist's renditions, it becomes evident how the man's hair naturally flows backward and lies flattened against the glass. Moreover, there is a noticeable compression in the anatomical contours of the back, buttocks, and lower legs. The image on the shroud is expected to match the traditional supine burial position that has been widely assumed. Nevertheless, the actual depiction of the shroud contradicts this anticipated alignment. Instead, it presents an anatomical form closely resembling that of an upright individual. The flowing hair and the bodily configuration of the man imprinted on the shroud undeniably reflect the stance of an upright person. Moreover, the figure on the shroud isn't shown as if he's standing or resting on anything. He seems to be floating, which raises the question, why does he appear suspended in midair? The answer to this mystery might well be rooted in the Holy Bible. This striking visual representation serves as a profound testament to the resurrection of Jesus. Furthermore, numerous discoveries on the shroud provide compelling evidence for its association with the image of Jesus Christ. An illustrative instance is the research conducted by Dr. Joseph Kolbach, who identified limestone containing dirt on the shroud. This limestone was just like the kind found in the tombs of Jesus in Jerusalem. It's called Jerusalem limestone, and it's mainly from Jerusalem. What's interesting is that the limestone on the shroud looked a lot like a sample from the Damascus Gate, which is close to Golgotha. This suggests that the person on the shroud probably walked around Jerusalem before being crucified. Moreover, the image on the shroud appeared to vividly capture the marks of the hardships and injuries that Jesus Christ experienced on the path to his ultimate sacrifice, the crucifixion. Abrasions on both shoulders suggest the strain of carrying a heavy, rough object like a cross, while abrasions on one knee imply that the man fell, leaving traces of dirt. Other areas on the shroud show a mixture of soil and blood, indicating that he hit his head on the ground during his fall to his knees. There were marks like thorns on the head, as if a crown of thorns had been pressed onto it painfully. The wrist wound on the shroud seems to be around the size of a 1 square centimeter square. Interestingly, in Rome, there's a church called the Holy Cross of Jerusalem that houses relics discovered by Saint Helen, Emperor Constantine's mother. Among these relics, there's a nail believed to have been used in crucifixions, and astonishingly, it measures precisely 1 square centimeter in size. The Shroud of Turin also displays a distinctive elliptical wound on the side, roughly 2 inches in width, a dimension that corresponds to the size of a Roman spear. The depiction on the shroud further reveals a separation between the red blood and clear blood serum, a phenomenon commonly observed when an individual has succumbed to death and sustained a wound. This separation results in the distinct discharge of both blood and water from the side wound, a detail explicitly mentioned in the Gospel of John. These specific characteristics align with only one account in history pertaining to a singular individual. The most touching part was the stains on the shroud, thought to be his blood. People said these stains were special reminders of the sacrifice made for humanity by Jesus. These details collectively add to the compelling evidence of the shroud's authenticity and the sufferings endured by the individual it represents. Additionally, the shroud contained traces of 49 different types of pollen. Out of these, 33 were only found in plants from Palestine and 3 were unique to Jerusalem. This botanical evidence strongly indicates that the shroud likely came from a time between March and April. It's even possible that one of these plants was used to make the crown of thorns. Physicists John Jackson and Eric Jumper had an interesting idea about the faint marks over the eyes of the man on the shroud. They thought these marks might be coins, possibly used in Jewish burials during the 1st century. What's fascinating is that these coins were very similar in size to the ancient coins used in the era of Pontius Pilate, from 2 BC to 33 AD. Moreover, the shroud's dimensions are remarkably close to an old measurement standard, measuring 2 by 8 cubits. Interestingly, a 3-inch wide side strip on the shroud was sewn using a special stitch that was only used in Palestine during the 1st century, creating a strong link to that historical period. Common depictions of crucifixion often show individuals being nailed through their palms, but archaeological findings challenge these portrayals from the Middle Ages. Research has confirmed that the nails used in crucifixion were actually driven through the wrists. This specific placement provided more stability and allowed the victim to move up and down on the cross, making it easier to breathe. The nail locations on the shroud image match this, adding to its authenticity. And if that's not astonishing enough, there's another recent revelation that comes from researchers in Palermo, Italy. They've made a groundbreaking discovery that suggests the image on the shroud isn't static. Instead, it displays subtle movements akin to stroboscopic photography, where the figure seems to undergo slight shifts caused by intense bursts of energy radiating from the body. This adds an extra layer of fascination and enigma to the already captivating tale of the Shroud of Turin. The research outcomes unveil that the figure on the shroud is presented in different poses, indicating that the hands, feet, and chest exhibited movement in sync with the individual's breath. This revelation strongly implies the depiction of Jesus' resurrection on the Shroud of Turin. Nonetheless, the most substantial revelation pertaining to the shroud has emerged from a Paris-based organization, the International Center of Studies on the Shroud of Turin. Concealed within the fabric, researchers from this institution have unveiled astonishing findings, inscriptions that defy easy explanation. It can be observed that beneath and to the sides of the chin, there are 3 distinct and evenly spaced lines where no image appears. These scientists carefully broke down the official shroud photos into many small squares, gave each square a level of brightness, and then used a program to analyze them visually. As a result, a set of letters gradually emerged, written in both Latin and Greek. These inscriptions reference Jesus, and one side bears the word Nazarene. The prevailing theory suggests that the text was inscribed on a separate document by a scribe, and then affixed to the shroud over the face, a practice intended to aid relatives in the proper identification and burial of the deceased. The composition of the ink employed during that period could have facilitated the transfer of the reading onto the linen. Importantly, this inscription procedure did not interfere with the technique used to generate the image on the shroud. According to researchers, this discovery effectively rules out the chance of the text originating from medieval times. They argue that even during that era, no Christian, not even a forger, would have referenced Jesus without recognizing his divine nature. Failing to do so would have carried the peril of being labeled a heretic. The improved images of the excerpted words have also been shared with other specialists, and they agreed that the writing style was consistent with the typical script from the Middle East during the 1st century, which corresponds to the time of Jesus. This unquestionably verifies that the person imprinted on the shroud is indeed none other than Jesus, who selflessly gave his life for our salvation. This raises a significant question: just how crucial is the narrative of Jesus' resurrection to Christian believers? In essence, without the resurrection story, the foundational belief in God's redeeming grace through Jesus would collapse. In rising from the dead, Jesus unequivocally affirmed his status as the Son of God and the fulfillment of his mission to bring atonement, redemption, reconciliation, and salvation to humanity. The resurrection was not metaphorical. It involved the actual physical revival of Jesus' body from death. As depicted in all the gospel accounts, in the early hours of a Sunday morning, a group of women who had been devoted followers of Jesus made their way to his tomb, with the intention of preparing his body for a proper burial. To their amazement, upon reaching the tomb, they discovered that the massive stone obstructing the tomb's entrance had been rolled away, and the tomb was found to be unoccupied. According to the Synoptic Gospels, a radiant figure manifested and conveyed to these women the astonishing news of Jesus' resurrection. In John's distinctive narrative, Mary Magdalene had an encounter with an individual who initially appeared as a gardener, but upon addressing her by name, he unmistakably revealed himself as Jesus. Despite variations in the details of their accounts, all the Gospels harmoniously affirm that in the days that followed, numerous disciples had direct encounters with Jesus and felt his presence. The resurrection serves as the pinnacle of the passion narrative in all four Gospels, as it stands at the very core of the concept of redemption. It instills in us a profound sense of gratitude for the Messiah, who is none other than the Son of the living God, willingly offering his life as a ransom for many. He currently reigns at the right hand of God, and one day he will return in glory to restore this fractured world. What are your thoughts about this? I hope you like our story. Until the next one.